6 months ago, we came here to the town of Cerro Gordo, California, to see if it would be possible to design a wireless infrastructure for an 1800s era silver mining ghost town. Today, we are back. We've brought a truckload of equipment, and I have also brought along Crosstalk's own David Barger, as well as YouTube's TechnoTim. Are you guys ready to have a fun install?
Yeah,
we're ready.
Let's do this.
All right, we've only got a limited amount of time here, but nothing left to do but get started. Converged onto Cerro Gordo from different parts of the US, meeting in Reno and then making the 5-hour drive through the desert from there. The 6 months leading up to this trip has been a ton of planning, working with vendors, sourcing equipment, and trying to think of every possible detail in order to achieve a successful install and provide the town of Cerro Gordo with amazing wireless coverage. Due to how remote this place is, we can't just run down to the store and buy something that we forgot, or head home to grab a tool that we need, so we tried to cover every contingency. But of course, even the best laid plans turn to hell as soon as they're exposed to reality, and this was no exception. So we just got here, we're walking around, we're evaluating what we're gonna do for this install. We already had a pretty good plan in place, but as things go, that plan has already kind of gone to crap, unfortunately. So what you see behind me right here is the town of Cerro Gordo. Now, originally we had planned to have the UDM Pro and the point-to-multipoint antenna on this gray building right that I'm pointing at right there. That is the general store. From there, it would have a really nice line of sight to the rest of town. The problem we ran into is that general store has no power in it. So we cannot use that general store for any sort of power or anything. So now, I think we're going to reconfigure so that the point-to-multipoint is over here in this brown building. That is the Gordon House, and I think that'll work out just fine. After our plans to use the general store as the core of the network were sidetracked by the lack of power, we realized that the Gordon House was our next best option. And it actually worked out quite well because we were able to commandeer an unused closet on the second level that worked perfectly for our 4U network rack. Inside that network rack, we're installing a 1U UPS to keep the power consistent, as well as a Dream Machine SE. We're using a Unify U6 Plus for client wireless inside the Gordon House, and we'll be installing a Rocket Prism point-to-multipoint antenna on the exterior as the jumping off point to provide wireless to the rest of the town. Now that we had a new plan in place, it was time to get to work. All right, so we found a spot in the Gordon House where we're gonna put our equipment. What we have here is gonna be sort of the base of the whole thing. We've got a 4U rack. This locks, so that if anyone's in here, they can lock it up. They can't mess with the equipment inside of there. We have a rack mount UPS right here, and we have a UDM SE that's going to do a lot of the power. That's the brains of the whole operation here. Now it's going to have to go in this closet here, so we'll have to clean all that out and then get this installed. How's that rack coming along, Tim?
Oh, good. Good. Done a couple of them before. Yeah, pretty easy, pretty nice.
What do you think for like a home lab? This is a pretty good unit?
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I want one of these in my garage, exactly for, this kind of stuff.
Right on top of the old record player. Zip tie for this guy?
Okay. That cord worked out so perfectly.
There be light. All right, UDM SE's coming online. Sweet. Next thing we want to do is, in the morning, Starlink Mini, plug it in, get the access point. We're going to run a cable Cat right through the same hole. Cat 6 cable, up and over. We'll put it like right over here, like just kind of above the stairs. So interior Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And we'll work on that exterior Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Use it up on
All right, so it's the morning of our first full day here. We did get the
UDM-SE set up last night, and we hooked up Starlink Mini to it. We hooked up an access point, so we verified that we had internet connectivity, but that was about it. It was about 8 p.m. we decided to turn in. It is now very early in the morning. We just took some drone shots since the sun's not quite up yet, and today is going to be a big day here at Cerro Gordo. We got to get the point to multi-point antenna up on top of the Gordon house, so lots of wiring, lots of running stuff through walls, and yeah, I just want to get this thing done so that we can start actually enjoying the internet, and I can stop worrying about how much work we actually have to do.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, all right. Internet comes up to Cerro Gordo from a wireless ISP located down in Lone Pine, California. And that internet shoots up point to point to the east side of Cerro Gordo on a mountain way over there. From that mountain, it doesn't have any line of sight to the town itself, so they had to beam it over to this secondary receiving station. So what we've got here on this pole is a solar panel, some batteries, we've got a charge controller to keep everything powered up and the power nice and clean, and then on the pole, we have a nano beam that is receiving the signal from the wireless ISP, and it goes into a microtik or microtik, depending on how you want to say it, I won't judge, router that is in this little box right here. And from there, it goes into a light AP that is a point-to-multipoint access point that shoots the signal down to the town of Cerro Gordo. Now, previously, they were picking up that signal in a couple of spots, the Gordon house and the Hoist house. Now we've eliminated it, so it's just point-to-point to the Gordon house. And when we came up here, we actually brought the equipment and had the plan to potentially change some of this out. We were gonna put 2 brand new nano beams and get rid of the older equipment, get rid of the microtik. And the reason that we would do that is a couple of reasons. Number one, it's newer equipment. You know, this is outside right here in the elements. There's snow, there's hot sun. You know, this stuff wears down over time. So we figured as long as we're here, maybe we should just replace this stuff. Plus, getting rid of that router would save some of the power from this solar setup. But ultimately, we decided not to do that because, first of all, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And now we have a secondary internet source in Starlink Mini. So if this does ever go down, I'm not as worried about it because we have a backup plan. So we'll leave this for now. If we do ever make another trip out here, we might address this, you know, fix up the solar a little bit, get rid of that router, but we're gonna leave it as is today. So one of our tasks here is that we have to build some big bundles of Cat 6 in order to go down that mine shaft. We need one 130-foot bundle and we need a couple of 250-foot bundles so that when they actually do the mine shaft install, they'll have all the cable pre-terminated and ready to go. Now, the cable that we're using is trueCABLE outdoor rated direct burial Cat 6. It's shielded cable. This is tough as nails cable, and we have to thank trueCABLE for donating the cable for this project. Now, we have black cable that's going to go down the mine shaft, and then for any of the outdoor areas here around Cerro Gordo, we have another spool of brown cable. So same outdoor direct burial, but brown because we want to aesthetically allow it to sort of blend in and not stick out like a sore thumb. So thank you, trueCABLE. This stuff is awesome.
So the great thing about this trueCABLE is you have this pull cable here, which you can use to remove the sheathing, but the actual jacket here, the metal, can be used for grounding this cable. What's nice about it is this paper on the inside is actually for waterproofing, so if water gets in this cable, it turns into a gel. That way it doesn't go and leak down the other end, kind of turn into a hose. But of course, on the inside, we got our twisted pairs, and of course, this centerpiece, which we just snip right off here. And we can terminate this just like any other Cat 6 cable. A little bit deeper on the inside here, of course, we mentioned that this is some shielding on the outside. You can use this little cable on the inside as well for grounding. We'll see on the RJ45 ends that we have here that you actually clamp that there onto it. Here's a trick for you. This is actually the jacket. I use that to untwist these when it's nice and chilly so your fingers don't go raw by the end of the day. We forgot our untwist tool, at least I did.
So here we have the wood cover for the U6 Plus access point. This works for the Nano HD. I think it works for some of the light access points, anything that's this smaller form factor. And hopefully it'll help these blend in a little bit more aesthetically with, you know, the old wood that we've got going around here at Cerro Gordo. All right, so we got our first U6 Plus here in the Gordon house installed. It's looking pretty good. We may or may not turn off that LED. It kind of does stick out a little bit with that turned on, but it's kind of center in the house, right above the stairs, so it should give this whole house actually pretty good coverage.
The guys are hard at work at getting the Gordon House online. I've been tasked with pre-terminating all of the Cat 6 runs that are going to be later put down into the mine. Getting down to the mine is a whole ordeal. They're going to do that on their own when, you know, the time works for them. It takes a lot of people to operate that lift. I am unspooling the cable to the correct length, getting it terminated and all ready for them. And the biggest thing for me here is I want to make sure I take this off in a nice fashion so that whenever they go to actually use this, it's all nice and rolled up and it won't tangle for them whenever they're putting it down the mine. So we're not using the old rope rolling method, treating it almost as like a hose.
So our point-to-multipoint antenna is based off of this Rocket Prism 5 gigahertz access point, and that is going to connect to this AirMax AMO 5G10 omnidirectional antenna. This thing's actually really super powerful. It's definitely going to provide complete coverage to the town and could probably almost get down to the valley if you wanted to pick up the signal from down there. So yeah, next thing we're going to do is get this all set up, put on the J-pole, and then we got to get it on the side of the Gordon. There we go, Rocket Prism and Omni connected. So this equipment was originally going to go into that general store, but of course they didn't have any power, so we put it here. And this actually worked out, I think, for the better, because it's in this upstairs closet. This can lock, but they could also potentially put a door here that can lock as well so that people can't mess with the network equipment. These cables here are for the backup Starlink. They're going to eventually run these through the wall, but right now it's just coming in through the door. And then out of the UDMSE, we are powering a U6 Plus access point here inside the Gordon House. We're powering that point-to-multipoint antenna outside, and that of course is feeding the rest of the town. So this really is the brains of the operation. And now that we have both the wireless ISP and Starlink plugged into the UDMSE, I'm very confident that the internet is going to be much, much more stable.
I want to take a moment here to thank Ubiquity for sponsoring all of the network equipment for this video. They've been huge supporters of the work that we do here at Crosstalk, and this was no exception. When I told them that we had this huge project coming up, they said, how can we help? And they came through in a big, big way. So thank you to Ubiquity. Their gear makes managing this super remote network a piece of cake, no matter where you are in the world.
Midway through day one, how are we feeling?
Tired already.
Oh, I'm good.
Man, this stuff's a lot of work.
We got the Gordon House pretty much complete. We're gonna get some lunch and refuel and yeah, get to the Bunkhouse.
Bunkhouse next.
Yep.
So this is the state of Wi-Fi that we're walking into. This is the access point. This is an indoor access point that is dangling upside down outside. Dangling outside the window, of course. Held up by a VHS copy of Titanic, and that is picking up its signal from all the way up here at the Gordon House. And they tell me that the internet's not great. Surprise, surprise.
The Bunkhouse is one of the most important locations for this install. First, because it's where guests and staff spend the night, so having great internet access is key, but also because this was the only spot on the property where we could get line of sight up to the Hoist House, which is hidden from the rest of the town by a huge pile of mine tailings that were pulled out of the ground for decades. We start with a nanobeam picking up a point-to-point signal from the Gordon House and expanding client wireless with a U6 Plus access point indoors and a U6 Mesh Pro access point on the outside. We're then running a cable 300 feet up the side of the hill to another nanobeam that broadcasts the LAN up to the Hoist House. They've been here working on an access point that's been hanging outside the window for the past year. So anything that we put in here is going to be an improvement.
That's true.
All right, so we are now working on the bunkhouse right behind me. This is where we're actually staying for the 3 nights that we're up here, also known as the haunted bunkhouse.
So I ended up with what they call the doll room. This is my friend for tonight. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
This is the second most complex part of this deployment. So we had the Gordon House way over there, which is where the point-to-multipoint access point is. But here at the bunkhouse, we've got some interesting challenges. So over here we got Mr. TechnoTim hard at work. He is putting in our ubiquity switch underneath this shelf right here and strapping it to the wall. And then we're taking 3 cables out of that wall. One of the cables is for this nano beam right here, which I have used Plastidip to spray paint brown. Then we also have this U6 Mesh Pro, which I have also painted brown. Both of these are going right here on the exterior so that they can pick up the signal from the Gordon house way up there. Nano beam will pick up that signal, bring it into that switch, and then back out of the switch, we're gonna have that U6 Mesh Pro right up above the window here. Now, the third cable coming out of that switch out through the wall is gonna have to go all the way up this hill to this pole. You can't see the pole, but it's right up there about where my finger is. And that's the only place where we have line of sight to the Hoist House up at the top of the property. And finally, we have another U6 Plus that is going to go in the middle of the bunkhouse, right in the hallway here, to cover all of these guest rooms down the hallway. Attention to detail is very important for all of our installs, and this was no exception. Since this is an old-timey ghost town, it didn't make much sense to have a bunch of fancy white access points clearly visible to the general public. So to help everything blend in better, we used Plastidip, which can help make the equipment disappear, and since it's not a metal-based coating, it won't affect the Wi-Fi. So this stuff is great. It's good for outdoors. It coats very evenly, and yeah, it just works great. Comes in all kinds of colors. I'm using brown for the exterior of this building right here, and yeah, let's get to it. All right, so there we go. Nice, clean, even, looks great. Now I don't do the bottom right away because I don't want to cover up where the port where the Ethernet ports plug in. But once we have it up on the wall and plugged in, I will come back and touch up that bottom area. All right, we got Avery here who's working on getting that J-arm up on this really old window frame. Hey, how's that really old wood working out for you?
It's coming apart in a few spots, but you just gotta stick a screw in from here and then maybe a few in from this side, and we'll come apart more. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
We'll get it. One piece at a time.
Tim, why is my back hurt? Also, Tim carries this 50 pounds full of cable up the hill.
That's true. Why does my back hurt?
If only we knew. All right, so what we're doing here is we're going to carry this, correction, Tim is going to carry this giant spool the whole way up that hill, up to the top. We have a pole mounted. The guys here got it all set up. It looks great. We are going to run a cable from here the whole way to the top to use the nano beam to beam it the entire way over to the Hoist House because that's the only place that has a line of sight. So let's get our exercise in, Tim.
Let's do it. Get the steps in.
Yeah. Oh. Well, thanks, Tim. Thanks for the air support, Chris.
All right, we're getting close to the end of the first full day here. Tim, how do you think we're doing on time?
I think we're good. We're making good progress.
Yeah, right now we're heading over to the recording studio to scope that out. Try to knock out that location because it's a smaller project compared to the rest of the ones we're doing, and we are kind of waiting on some stuff to be pulled through walls at the bunkhouse. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. What do you think?
I think we'll get it.
All right, good.
So we're at the recording studio. What we're doing here is we're actually gonna tear down this old antenna that's not being used anymore. We're gonna put a nano beam up there, and its cable is gonna go down through the wall into the inside and be powered. But what's great about this is we're gonna use the secondary port on the nano beam to power a mesh access point outside. That way we just have a single cable coming through the wall, grabbing the internet connection from over there and broadcasting the Wi-Fi here.
That's not going anywhere. I can probably do a little more, but I don't want to
Right behind me here, we have the recording studio, and this was one of the easier locations that we set up. It was a super simple deployment. We have a nano beam, which has the secondary port enabled with PoE out to power up that UAP AC mesh access point right on the side there. So it was basically just one cable through the wall, power up both of these devices. Now, not only does this cover the recording studio in wireless, but it also helps to cover this little stand of buildings out here that are used for staff and some other purposes. All right, so Dave just tested out that 300-foot-ish length of cable that runs up the hill. And Dave, what's the verdict?
Pass.
Pass and shielded.
Yep, shielded.
So we have that trueCABLE direct burial outdoor Cat 6 running all the way up the hill. And now's the moment of truth. It's getting dark out here. Can we see the moon above you? Oh yeah, look at that. Moon's up there. Oh, it's such a beautiful night tonight. We're gonna hike up the hill, get that nano beam plugged in and fire it up. We should see it come online. So the one downside to having this nano beam up on the hill up here is it's quite a hike to get up there. I think this is the third time I've done it this trip and probably Dave's fifth time.
Today.
Yeah, and it's not fun, especially when you're up here. What's the altitude up here?
9,000 feet.
Yeah, so we're at 9,000 feet altitude, so just climbing this hill is quite a bit of exertion. But I guess if you live up here, you get used to it, right?
Yeah, I would assume.
Yeah, all right, well, let's go up again. So yesterday, we got the entire Gordon house done. We also finished off the Bunkhouse, and those to me were kind of the two biggest projects. What do you guys think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
The next one we have to do is the Hoist House, and that's sort of, it's a tough one because there wasn't a lot of line of sight up to that Hoist House. Let me flip the camera around here. The Hoist House is up behind this humongous tailings pile here, and what do you notice? You can't actually see it, right? So that's kind of what we have to deal with today, and that is exactly why we had to run that 300-foot of cable up the hill. So that nano beam is online and working. Now we have to do the other side. Besides that, we also have to finish off Brent's house. We also have the general store where we need to do a couple of surveillance cameras, and there's no power in there, so we kind of got to figure that situation out. And then we have a couple of other areas that are kind of optional. We might do, we might not do. David, you were just in the church. Now the church is this like steel clad building. It's not steel, it's what, tin siding, but Wi-Fi does not go through tin very well. However, Dave, you were just in there, and what did you see?
Yeah, I was getting pretty much the full speed of the ISP, which is about 50 by 40-ish, and my phone was actually modulating at about 100 megabits per second TX and RX, so I was really impressed.
Yeah, so we had planned on doing the church because of the metal siding, but we might not have to do that one, and that would leave some spares up here at Cerro Gordo if anything breaks in the next, year or two before we'd be able to get back up here. Any issues for today, Tim?
No, just learning a ton of stuff, and yeah, I'm excited to be here.
This morning, Dave gave Tim a crash course in the shielded outdoor Cat 6 termination. What did you think about that?
That was good. First time, yeah, cables are pretty stiff. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same. Pull the shielding down, but got my first one.
At the start of our second full day at Cerro Gordo, it was time to take on the Hoist House, which is kind of where this whole journey began. I did a video on their original Wi-Fi setup and made my own recommendations, and now here we are, putting those recommendations into action. But now we have to put our money where our mouth is and make sure that the network up here is as solid as the network that we're building down in town. and we also need to get Wi-Fi and cameras 900 feet down the mine shaft that the Hoist House sits on top of. Outside the Hoist House, we're using another nano beam to capture the signal from the hill above the Bunkhouse, and we're feeding that into an Enterprise 8 PoE switch. From there, we're powering up a UAP AC Mesh Pro that was already here at Cerro Gordo, and we're extending fiber out to a termination box. This marks the start of our run down the mine shaft, but before our network can head down the mine, we need to connect our point-to-point antenna.
Alright, so you can see the before picture of the Hoist House here. So what we're dealing with is this MikroTik router that's only being used as a switch. Then we have that sort of weird point-to-point coax thing that's also supposed to deliver PoE that doesn't deliver PoE 900 feet down. It just doesn't work so well. And then we also have on the exterior here a UAP AC mesh that is actually in pretty bad shape. So we will be replacing that as well. And there's even a super musty dusty UAP Mesh Pro. Maybe we'll try to get that thing back in action. So up here in the Hoist House, we have this little fiber patch box here. So these are just LC to LC pass-throughs, and then we have an armored fiber patch cable coming out of here, plenty of slack, and then it hits the switch over here. So when they actually go to terminate the big fiber cable down the mine shaft, it'll run in through this hole right here, and it will plug into the top here to cross connect, which is going to give them a lot more flexibility. And then this just closes up like so. So right there you can see there's a piece of wood that's high enough that should have line of sight to the other side of that wireless bridge. And there's also some holes conveniently already rusted through the wall right there. So I think that'll be a good spot. We just have to get up there and double check and make sure that we can see the other side of that point-to-point bridge.
This thing leak in the rain, the Hoist House?
Yeah. Not too bad, but you know.
See the white dot?
The white dot, yep. Kind of right at it.
Alright, so here is the Hoist House network complete. So we have the nano beam on the exterior that is feeding in right here, and we're powering it up with this 802.3 AF to 24 volt passive PoE converter. I re-hooked up this coaxial thing that goes down the mine shaft, but it probably won't ever be used again. Then we have an Ethernet cable that comes out here, and we were able to salvage that dusty old UAP ACM Pro, and that is now in operation and working perfectly. This black cable here goes to a camera that they had hooked up looking down the mine shaft, and then right here is our fiber connection, and this fiber goes out here and then into this little fiber patch panel, and then also into that fiber patch panel they will terminate that big thick fiber cable that's actually going down the mine shaft, which will come up and over and down.
The mine shaft presents our biggest technical challenge yet. How can we deliver both Wi-Fi and camera coverage up and down this 900-foot mine shaft? Now, Brent had some big plans. He wanted Wi-Fi at multiple levels, and he wanted a camera at the 700 level to monitor the water source. Their initial coaxial solution didn't hold up. It was able to bring Wi-Fi down to the 900 level, but it couldn't support cameras or any additional wireless access points. After debating and talking through many different options, we settled on a hybrid solution. Cat6 for the shorter runs and fiber for that demanding stretch down to the 700 level. This is going to meet all of Brent's requirements and provide for future expandability. But we still had one obstacle. We can't just buy any fiber cable. We needed something robust enough to handle the conditions in the mine shaft. we needed armored fiber.
Dropping cable down that mine shaft is a unique thing. I certainly have never done it in my career. However, we did a lot of research on this and we think we came up with what is an ideal solution for the fiber cable that has to drop down about 800 feet, or I should say we have 800 feet of fiber cable. Now, this was donated to this project by Infinite Cable, so thank you very much, Infinite Cables, for sponsoring this part of this. And Dave, tell us what we got here.
So what we have here is, how many feet do we have?
We have 244 meters.
244 meters of armored cable that we're going to drop from the top level the whole way down to the 700-foot level. And what we have here is a pre-terminated set. If we open this up here, it's got this nice pull hook on it, but most importantly, we have 6 strands of LC-LC OM3 cable that's nice and labeled, so we know what we're working with up at the top and down at the bottom. And it is approved for mining applications. It's a pretty robust fiber we got here.
Yeah, and this thing is not light either. It's about a 75-pound spool of fiber, but this is going to be absolutely perfect for this.
We're using the same rugged trueCABLE Cat 6 to drop 2 UK Ultra access points down to the 100 and the 200-foot levels. These access points are Wi-Fi 5, which is fine for this application, but more importantly, they're really tough and they're light on power draw. At the 700 level, we've got another Enterprise 8 PoE switch and a fiber junction box which mirrors what we have up top. Now this is where the other end of the fiber cable is going to terminate. Since the 700 level has plenty of power for that switch, we're using PoE for another UK Ultra access point, as well as a G5 Flex camera that's keeping an eye on the town's water source. Now, about 3 weeks after we left Cerro Gordo, I was outside cleaning my garage when I received a FaceTime call from Brent down at the 700 level. They had finished taking the fiber down the mine shaft and everything was working perfectly. He documented that process in his own video, and I'll put a link to that down below. We now have a 10 gigabit link between the Hoist House up top and the 700 level of the mine, which is way overkill in terms of the bandwidth needed, but since those Enterprise 8 PoE switches have SFP Plus ports, we went ahead and used them. Viewing the camera at the 700 level and hearing the water dripping through the microphone was a surreal, almost calming experience, and I was so glad to see that that went successfully. But we still had one more level of the mine shaft to cover, and that's at the very bottom, the 900-foot level. For this, we simply used another strand of Cat 6, but we connected it to the Enterprise 8 PoE switch at the 700 level. If you recall, we spent part of the first day here pre-terminating these cables so that Brent didn't have to deal with that when he actually did the install. Like any big project, the amount of planning and detail that we put into this install ahead of time is why it was successful. But I was still super relieved to see that 10 gigabit connection come alive in UniFi.
So we got the Hoist House done, and I am super happy about that because that is the part that I was most nervous about for this entire install. But it's done. We're going to give them real clear instructions for how to get all of the rest of the equipment hooked up down that 900 feet worth of mine shaft. And Brent said that they're going to tackle that job in probably 2 or 3 weeks. So really looking forward to seeing that on Brent's channel when he takes care of that part of it.
As the sun was going down on our last full day in Cerro Gordo, we turned our attention to 2 key spots, the general store and the Belshaw house, which is where Brent lives on the property. The general store wasn't too complicated, but we didn't have any power, so temporarily they ran an extension cord to where we needed it until power is properly permitted and installed at some point in the future. Since they wanted cameras to keep an eye on their merchandise, we first installed a Switch Ultra 60 watt, and then we popped another nano beam up onto the roof. Since the general store is a central tourist location for the town, we made sure to keep that nano beam discreet. We painted it brown with Plastidip, and we tucked it behind the front facade of the building. This made it almost invisible from ground level. We then hooked up 2 of the G5 Flex cameras and we gave them plenty of slack so that they could be moved around if needed. With that, the general store was done and it was time to get to our final install at the Belshaw house.
So the setup that we have here at the Belshaw house is super simple. We have a nano beam on the exterior that picks up the signal from the point to multi-point access point, and then we have a U6 Mesh Pro right up at the top of the roof. Now there's no switch or anything involved, we're just using a couple of PoE injectors and bridging them together.
It's good for my hands. These pressure's on it. Oh, look at that. On camera too.
Brent Underwood, owner and proprietor of Cerro Gordo, this beautiful town that we see behind us. And we've spent the last few days here getting everything set up, providing them with really good wireless coverage. And you know, one of the things that I noticed as we were going through town and sort of pulling out old stuff, and there seems like there was some level of communications infrastructure here.
Yeah.
Probably before your time. We found some old telephone wires, we found some old coaxial cable lying around everywhere. So what do you know about communications here at the town before your time?
Yeah, I know that once upon a time there was definitely a phone line. The old caretaker told me that was like his only way to communicate with the outside world. And so I know that they ran some up this hillside over here, they ran some over there. I know that at some point they had various satellite dishes all over the place.
Oh, wow.
So I think maybe they even went in with HughesNet, you know, that very
Sure.
early internet.
Oh yeah, we're aware.
So I think there's a legacy of telephone lines, HughesNet, and then various, I think, cable TV or satellite TV dishes all around the place.
Yeah.
But by the time I got here, all of that was removed. And so when I first came, you know, my cell phone barely worked and there's no internet at all.
Yeah.
And so our evolution was kind of from, you know, the little AT&T hotspot, and we're getting
Right.
1 to 2 megabytes per second download. We thought that was awesome to be able to communicate with anybody. And I think that, like, as the town's grown over the last few years, our like need for internet has grown obviously too, because there's
Sure.
more people up here. And so it can't just be me sending an email that I'm alive, you know, we need to actually start doing work up here.
Right.
And so we slowly kind of hacked together a system that was working okay.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of blind spots around the town too.
What then, given the blind spot, so why was it kind of important to have that full coverage for everyone? Like what's the sort of most important things for everyone up here?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like, it's grown. The town has grown from a population of 1, you know, myself pretty much, to a population of, like, we now have, you know, like a caretaker that's up here as well. We have volunteers coming up all the time. And like my job has turned a lot into like making videos, right?
Right.
So it
Yeah.
went from, you know, when I first moved up here and I started making videos, I would have to drive down to Lone Pine and sit outside the Best Western, which I found had the fastest internet to upload any of the videos.
Right.
And that just makes like the process of making videos much more difficult. And so I think personally, I needed better internet to at least, you know, do my job. And then also all the visitors coming up and all the volunteers, they wanted to be able to tell their parents and family and stuff, hey, I'm still okay.
Sure.
And so as people started spreading out throughout the buildings, the need for internet throughout the buildings, you know, increased. And I think that's kind of where we were before you guys came up here.
Now that we've been here, we've set everything up. This is our 3rd day. We have tested everything out. Everything seems to be working pretty good, and we're getting real good speeds all throughout town, certainly around all of the areas that we set up. We're getting great speeds up at the Hoist House. What's the future? What's next? What do you think we're gonna have to add next?
Yeah, I think, I mean, the hotel is the main thing. The building that looks out of place behind us is obviously the main project for the whole town. And I think once that's online, that'll be the central point for everybody that comes. You know, they're going to be meeting in there. We're hoping to have the bar and restaurant for people to, you know, congregate during the day.
Yeah.
So I imagine there'll be a lot of connectivity issues, or need, I should say, within the hotel. So I can see that happening. I'm excited to do this mine journey that I have to go on.
Oh, yeah.
Run the internet down the mine. And then beyond that, who knows? You know, long term for the property, my hope is that the hotel is online. We add maybe like 5 or 10 cabins around the surrounding 300 acres, which is a large space.
Yeah.
And so I imagine once those are online, people will want to be having internet in those places
Sure.
too. What you guys have done the last few days has made everything a lot easier, I think,
Yeah,
for everybody
good.
here,
Good,
which is
good.
awesome. And I just, like, everybody this morning that I talked to is like stoked that like the internet actually works
Yeah.
for the first time. You know, it's so hard living up here day to day generally,
Sure.
that if you can make even the smaller things a little bit easier, then that means a lot, you know?
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you guys being up here.
Yeah, of course. And thanks for giving us the opportunity to come out here and do this. This is the type of project that we absolutely love doing. And like I said, if you need us back for that hotel, once it's
Okay.
ready to rock and roll,
Yeah.
bring us back out. We'll do upgrades, whatever you need. We'll do some tweaks and fixes. And
Yeah.
I love this stuff. So this is absolutely an incredible opportunity. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, not just for the internet, but you guys have to come for the grand opening party, you know?
Oh, that'd be great.
Fun time.
Oh, that'd be
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Of course.
All right. Well, thank you, Brent.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. So this was the internet that the bunkhouse had before. And this is an indoor access point hanging out the window, and it was picking up the signal mesh from the Gordon house previously. It's time to decommission this thing. Godspeed. Well, that was a heck of a 3 days of work getting wireless coverage to the town of Cerro Gordo, California. And I'm so appreciative that we were able to come out here and do this project. And I'm appreciative that you guys were able to come out here and do it as well. So what do you think? Did we do a good job?
I think so. I think we did a great job. It was lots of work, but everybody here was so helpful.
Good. Tim, what do you think?
Went fantastic. You can tell that everyone here is happy with the changes. I think Brent said it a little bit earlier, but just these small changes to make people, their everyday lives a little bit easier goes a long way. And you can tell the appreciation on everyone's face the next day when we got internet up. So.
Absolutely. We've heard from multiple people. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Our internet's amazing now, which we love to hear that. Now, one of the funny things that I always find about these projects is that we came up here with a plan, and almost immediately when we got here, the plan completely changed. So then you have to pivot and figure out something different, and I think we pivoted pretty well, Dave.
I think so. We couldn't have done better.
Yeah, we ended up actually, and to be honest, I think using the Gordon house as the base of operations for the firewall and the point-to-multipoint antenna, in my opinion, actually ended up working out better than had we used the general store. Yeah, and you learn by doing, and you just got to push through and solve problems. What did you learn up here?
Oh, I learned so much. First of all, I got to meet you guys, so that was awesome. I've been watching your channel forever. But what did I learn? I learned a lot about point-to-point internet and kind of how ISPs get internet into locations or get networks into locations. And so that was a big blind spot for me. I've done a ton of LAN work and stuff like that. I kind of understand wireless and networking, but I've never done anything point to point like we've done over here, beaming the network from here, 500, 600, 700 feet over there. And it's pretty incredible, not only the technology, but how well it works,
And you learned how to definitely terminate thick outdoor rated Cat 6 shielded cabling.
Yeah, that's right. First time doing Cat 6, dealing with shielding, how thick it is, and the little divider in the middle and snipping it out. But
you got to build up calluses to work with it.
Yeah, these keyboard hands don't have many calluses, so I gained a few this week.
So that is our video. Like I said, I'm just so appreciative for the town of Cerro Gordo, and thank you to Brent. Thank you to all of our sponsors and the folks that donated equipment to the project. Everyone seems to gravitate around Cerro Gordo. It's just a great community. So especially Ubiquity donated all of the hardware for the networking. trueCABLE gave us the outdoor rated Cat 6 and some tools to work with, and of course Infinite Cables as well, who gave us that 800-foot spool of fiber that is going to go down the mine shaft. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but the sun is now just hitting us from behind, so it is about to get hot here. We're gonna end this video now, and we have a long drive home. Thank you guys so much for watching, and subscribe to Crosstalk Solutions if you're not already a subscriber. Plug?
Oh yeah, subscribe to TechnoTim. I talk about tech stuff, home lab stuff. Not usually out in the desert, but I will if I can be.
And plug?
David does. Cameras and travel.
All right, we'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate it. Good enough.
Cool.
Oh, I forgot to hit record. No, I'm just kidding.
That's all right.